Hey guys, it's Standing for Truth coming to you tonight. We are live. It's me, Landon, Jeremy, and Matt. We're going to have some fun. It's not going to be as long as usual. Just a short stream addressing I guess a comment or a rebuttal from both Nesslig Ration alMind. We're going to show you why evolutionists deny real science and show you why they failed at the end of the day, because based on everything that we said in yesterday's video, the evidence that we provided, very thorough, very sufficient. I recommend anybody watch it. It's getting a lot of hits already. So we're going to go over a few things here. I wanted to touch base on a couple things that jumped out at me in regards to what Nesslig said. In regards to genetic entropy. For anyone listening who doesn't really understand it, just to simplify it, if you think of it this way, we've got a genome of about 3 billion letters. You take out one letter, change one letter randomly. Are you going to have a huge fitness effect? It's going to have a tiny fitness effect. And in fact, it's like rust on a car. You can't see each rust event, but it's continuous and it's destructive. Just to show you how little they really understand the literature. In my debate with Jackson Wheat, I covered linkage groups and why that's a fatal blow to evolution, because the human genome is made up of linkage groups. Typical linkage groups have 30,000 letters long, okay? Now, mutations in that linkage group, they're basically linked forever, which means you've got lots of bad mutations in that linkage group, and that linkage group is reducing in fitness continuously based on accumulating deleterious mutations. So say you throw in one or two beneficials, just give it to them. Give them the one or two beneficials, Nesslig, you can have them. They're just going to get neutralized by the large number of deleterious ones. It's no help. It's all about net gain versus net loss. The linkage is actually a killer for evolution. This means that every linkage group, every linkage block is degenerate. And linkage groups can only get worse and not better. Now, when I brought that up in my debate with Jackson Wheat, his only response was, I don't really understand what he means by linkage groups, and kind of shrugged it off. But this is a very known fact in the literature, in the writings of, say, population geneticists like Dr. John Sanford, and that's how little they know about it. And there's a rock solid paper that came out. I'm going to share screen in a second. I want to pull it up. I brought this up in the debate as well, and it's the waiting time problem. It's very technical. It's rock solid. 10,000 people have read it with no serious critique. And just to kind of put it in a nutshell, why is the waiting time so long? It's technical. I recommend it. If you're just waiting, say, for a single mutation in a single nucleotide change, and you're waiting for that mutation to catch hold in the population and become fixated, it's surprisingly long to just make a specific nucleotide change, really about 1.5 million years. And so the ape to man timeline is about 6 million years. And this is only changing one letter. And so if you're waiting for a string of, say, 2, it's going to take 84 million years. A string of 3, let's say a new codon changing an amino acid, 376 million years. And it goes up from there. Let's say a string of 8, which would be a short genetic word. You need more time than the universe has had. And this paper is rock solid. It can't be debunked. And it just goes to show how the best these evolutionists like Nesslig can do is find their rebuttals from either a blog or a review on Amazon. I've discovered this review, and it's sad to say the least, because real quick, I'm going to share screen here just so I can show this paper. Actually, I have it in the description box. And just 1 second here. As I find this paper, Matt, did you want to jump in real quick just to avoid any dead air and give just kind of your brief thoughts on what you thought about the response to our video yesterday by Ration alMind?
I only saw some comments from him recently. It was before I left, and he went on a tirade about, like, even, you know, minutes here and there, like stating what was there to try to kind of debunk. He didn't really touch too much on the subjects that I was talking about. He was more asking along the lines of what I was talking about with Simon Ho. So I posted a link for him on that. I never got a reply, I don't think. But you know, pretty much what they were trying to do was, you know, they're mad that their phylogenetic tree is being uprooted, essentially, you know, because we're telling them that your trees are based on presumption. If you assume the common ancestor, you're going to build the tree. Take that away, you have nothing. You can't do it. So what makes you assume that there's a common ancestor when you guys don't have one yourselves? You know, none of the roots of these trees have anything. So you have to presume every step of the way. To me, that's ridiculous. Aaron Roth failed you guys, by the way. All you atheists out there, he completely ruined you. The reason why is because he's even stated himself that there would never be a generation of evolutionary descents that were completely unrecognizable as being related to or descended from their ancient ancestors. Yet at the same time, he believes that if you go back far enough in time, that none of the current life today looks like they do in their early life forms. So basically, he's completely refuted himself. Ridiculous. You know, so hold on. Sorry, I got somebody at the door.
No problem. Okay, so I've got the screen shared here. Here's the paper, rock solid paper. No serious critique really on anything genetic entropy related, anything that I've just talked about. So this is it. It's in the blog. I recommend reading. I've been studying. I gave a brief explanation there. Pretty much makes, based on this waiting time problem, evolution's impossible. Ape to man evolution's impossible. Look over that. The reason why I got these papers open too is because I completely debunked Nesslig's assertions on Kimura and his graph, and how apparently John Sanford misrepresented it. All it really is Nesslig misunderstanding what John Sanford is trying to do in regards to, because it's a rabbit trail. And here's a slide that, because the crucial issue is about defining the correct distribution of mutation effects, and it was oversimplified. Kimura's analysis of the problem was oversimplified, and where he gets his rebuttal, since there's no serious rebuttal, is right here. It's an Amazon.com review. Very weak. I've already debunked everything in it in my debates. Go watch them. They have no answers. This is why they fail. But John Sanford has actually responded to it. If you can see the screen here, he goes line by line and goes over. What I like here is how John Sanford, because nothing but ad hominems from these guys, and John Sanford goes on about his qualifications. Full-time research geneticist for 35 years. He's been involved in plant breeding, real-world genetic selection, genetic engineering, 100 plus publications. Click here. You can see those high-level theoretical papers. For the last 15 years, he's focused almost exclusively on theoretic genetics. He says, I think there are very few scientists that can match my qualifications to address the topics of selection limits and genetic degeneration. This is why they really don't stand a chance against him. And I like what he says here, because he says, you mock the idea. This is his response to this Amazon review, which is where Nesslig and Ration alMind. This is the best they can hope for, which is why it's so easy to beat these guys in a debate and a discussion. But he says, this is John Sanford says, you mock the idea that I had anything to fear when I began to challenge the current mutation selection paradigm. What you do not know is that, in fact, I was expelled for being a Darwin doubter and had to fight to be reinstated. Do you deny that doubting Darwin is widely recognized as academic suicide? I personally know many excellent scientists who have lost their jobs and careers merely by acknowledging the evidence that life is designed. Consider a young, untenured professor who is open to the idea of intelligent design and is considering the possible role of a designer in biology. Examine your own heart. Would you be one of the first to cast a rock at him or her? Intense hatred toward Christians who hold a design or creation view is quite common in academia, but you have to experience it to believe it. So evolutionists are very biased. Right here is where Nesslig gets his straw man argument about apparently John Sanford misrepresenting Cumorah, and he says, I show a larger zone of no selection than does Cumorah because Cumorah's analysis of the problem was oversimplified. And I have actually examined the problem in much greater detail than he did. And here's the papers. Nesslig just responds and says, oh, you know, his rebuttal to that, you know, no good, sad, whatever. No, he's projecting, because it's not like I just say these things. Rock solid papers. Here's another one here. Highly recommend it. Selection threshold severely constrains the capture of beneficial mutations. These, no serious peer-reviewed paper has even challenged these. Here's another one. Where is it? Let me see.
So only blogs.
Only blog. Amazon.com review. John Sanford's already addressed. He doesn't even have time for these low-level evolutionists, but he's just giving a brief response and then providing all these dozens of technical papers. This one's Can Purifying Natural Selection Preserve Biological Information? I'm just digging deep into these. Right here, the fundamental theorem of natural selection with mutations. This is the waiting time problem I was talking about. And another good one, because CRISPR fights tooth and nails the actually, this one I don't think is a paper. I sent it. Here we go. This is a good read here on the long-term evolution experiment, Lenski experiment. So it's just an outright denial and refusal to accept the evidence. And I've presented a ton of evidence for genome degradation. For example, you know, we see it in mammoth populations. There's papers with that. We see it in cheetah populations. We see it in the Neanderthals, Homo naledi, Homo erectus, highly inbred, high genetic load, reductive evolution. And there's a paper here on butterflies populations that are affected by this reductive evolution. It's really just a denial of the science, and they have no rebuttal to it other than what they find in some Amazon review. And I would just recommend reading what John Sanford says here. He's got a ton of papers here. Number 6, if you can see it, the evidence for real world genetic entropy is not just seen in the biblical data, it is seen in the past human genome. Click for a paper there. I'm digging into that one. In the present human genome, in virus populations, in the endangered cheetah population, in bacteria. Actually, bacteria reductive evolution is just an uncontested phenomenon in regards to that. So, you know what? The influx of deleterious mutations, 1 or 2 beneficial mutations, it's not gonna counterbalance, like I said, the influx of deleterious mutations. So they don't have answers. Evolution's been falsified, but let me see. I'm going to stop sharing it here because I want to get into what I notice about specifically Ration alMind's really just sad response. I want to see what Jeremy thinks of it, because one thing that jumped out at me, Jeremy, was and what we're going to do is Jeremy and I have written a full rebuttal to everything Ration alMind has said, but he had his chance. He blew it. Misrepresentations, weak arguments, just sad, sad, sad. So we're going to go over a couple things. We got a full rebuttal of every single point. We're just going to go over a couple things that kind of jumped out at us. But for any Christians, brothers in Christ, sisters in Christ, if you actually, we're leaving the comment up. If you look at it and you actually think something in there is intimidating or something of substance, email me, Standing for Truth. We'll email you a copy of the rebuttal or just any specific questions, and we'll help you out there, because you know what? These guys really, really blew it. I noticed one thing, for example, that jumped out at me. He said, I think this was near the beginning, he said, Jeremy and Standing repeat their claims that the data is pointing to the Middle East as the center of genetic diversity. What data, he says? Why do they never provide any citations for this supposed research, or these unbiased evolutionists who say that the Middle East is the center of genetic diversity? But we said because the Northeast Africa has lots of genetic diversity. It borders the Red Sea. And when you cross the Red Sea, it's already the Middle East. And that massive genetic diversity is so close to the Middle East that we can put it in the Middle East based on our assumptions on actually what happened in the past. And the other thing that right here, he said around 37 minutes, Jeremy makes a valid point. This is one other thing that comes to mind, and I'm going to pass it on to Jeremy, but he says the hub of genetic diversity, where we all came from, when we move away from the hub, genetic diversity decreases. In other words, the location on Earth with the highest genetic diversity is where the most recent ancestors of all modern humans lived. That's why it's significant that this hub is in East Africa, not in the Middle East, as Standing and Jeremy claim. Even Jensen himself recognizes that most genetic diversity is present in Africa. That's why he tries to invoke increased mutation rates in Africa to account for it. We said he agrees that the massive genetic diversity is found in Northeast Africa, like Jeremy said in the video. But once again, since it borders the Middle East, too close for comfort for evolutionists. Like Jeremy said in the video, we can put the hub of genetic diversity depending on our belief on what happened there in the past. So that's kind of one misrepresentation that jumped out at me. Jeremy, what do you think? What are your thoughts, brother?
I never directly said that the genetic diversity hub is in the Middle East. I'm just saying that some evidence are pointing us there.
Exactly.
It seems to go there. It seems to go there. Did I say 100%? And you could even reference, check the other videos that we made. Did I ever say that the genetic diversity is directly in the Middle East? How many times have I said that the center of genetic diversity currently is Northeast Africa? Right? I said that many times, correct? If you recall, it's been 2 to 3 videos already.
Oh,
I never said.
No, exactly. It was obvious to anybody what you said.
I simply said that it depends on our starting point. You assume evolution, then you put it in Northeast Africa. You assume creation, you can put it in the west of the in the Western Middle East, very close to Northeast Africa, bordering the Red Sea, Saudi Arabia. Yeah, Saudi Arabia, and then Red Sea, and then there is Egypt, Northeast Africa. See, it's just too close for comfort for evolutionists. His rebuttals were just too weak.
Very, very weak. What was something? Because I felt like there was one thing that I feel like there's a few objections he said that could just be dismantled with one response.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. What you just said. The 2 samples. It's so weak that the 3 of the 3 of his objections can only be answered. It can only have one answer. That's how weak it is. Really, seriously. It's really weak.
If you
I was laughing when I was laughing when I was writing the rebuttal. Huh? I have to say this again on this particular question. And after that was the second time. And then and another objection he made. Huh? This again? He's using different angles to attack us, but different angles, but it only all those angles only need one answer. He didn't pay attention at all. He didn't pay attention at all.
Actually, this is one that just came to mind to me too, because he said, Jeremy makes my original point for me. There are very few genetic differences separating the R haplogroup from the L, M, and N haplogroups. There are also few between the L, M, and N haplogroups, a fact that Jensen claims represents the recent shared ancestry of the three wives of Noah. But Jensen and Standing rejects this same reasoning when applied to the relationship between the R node and the L, M, and N nodes, simply because he can't allow there to be four major lineages, and I mentioned above. But yet, if he was paying attention and not spending all his time misrepresenting, you said there are two versions of the LMN. The other version is actually MNR from Dr. Robert Carter, and with few genetic differences separating M and R from one another, it's the same case from LMN. Plus, you said, based on the evidence here, that our model is adaptable, and it's anticipated every single rebuttal to their objections.
Can you please, Standing for Truth, the Noah's wife, read?
If Noah's wife can still produce offspring along with the three daughters-in-law, now we can have four mitochondrial DNA starting point, and that's how adaptable our model actually is. So that was something that jumped out at me too. I mean,
easy, correct? So easy, right? So easy to refute.
Well, the thing is, and this is why they fail. I mean, how would you sum it all up there, Jeremy? You know, it's
overall it was such a weak reply, really weak rebuttal. Actually, I also noticed that he uses plenty of evolutionary assumptions or bias to try and refute us. Can they even try to refute us using neutral data? They need to assume evolution to prove evolution and use evolution to disprove creation. Can you do that in court? Wow, neutral is gone, really. Bias is their way of life. Do they even know that they are using evolutionary assumptions to prove evolution? Do they even know that they are using evolutionary assumptions to disprove creation? I easily noticed his bias at the beginning when he used population genetics, for example. And for example, population genetics, which is a big deal to the evolutionary community, what many people do not know is it involves certain assumptions. 5 assumptions, my goodness, 5. Oh, if only one of those 5 is wrong, the entire population genetics of evolutionists collapses. Now, for example, it assumes common ancestry, okay? Another one, it assumes that mutations are the source of all variety. Number 3, it assumes a long time scale already, okay? It assumes constant mutation rates, okay? And the last one is the only real data about population genetics that is a little bit free from evolutionary assumptions, but there are still assumptions. And it's called it's from the HapMap project, where the single nucleotide polymorphisms were checked for genetic differences. And like I said, even that has evolutionary bias or assumptions behind it. And I don't want to talk too long here, but I want to prove just how many did I mention? 5, right? 5 assumptions in population genetics. One collapses, everything collapses. Now, one of their primary assumptions, like I said, is common ancestry. To build their tree, to create their population genetics. Okay. All right. Okay. For example, how I'm gonna explain a bit how they create their population genetics using common ancestry assumption. Okay. It is not neutral. They do not do their population genetics neutrally. They did do it with 4 to 5 evolutionary starting points and assumptions already. Incredible bias, if you ask me. Okay, and the common ancestry, this is how they do it. Okay, for example, a small area of the human genome, as we know, okay, is more or less the same with the gorilla genome. Okay, then to the chimpanzee genome also. So it's a subset, correct? And our species 3 does not match the gene 3. Okay, if you know what I mean. Evolutionists actually say that this differences is expected for closely related species that have diverged from each other in a short amount of time. According to evolutionists, the reason our genome is more similar to the chimpanzee genome is that we most recently shared a common ancestor with chimpanzee. Again, an assumption within an assumption. Okay, they use genetic markers to prove this, to show this, but those genetic markers are really a small subset. Okay, really a small subset. It's just a few genes actually. So assumption upon assumption. Okay, but in spite of this, we have some regions in our genome that are more closely related to gorillas. Okay, they say this arises because the population that that gave rise to the human chimpanzee common ancestor was large enough and genetically what's the word again? Genetically diverse enough to transmit this variation to us without passing it onto the chimpanzee. So they say chimps and humans are separate genomic examples of a diverse ancestral population. So had this pool been smaller, the human chimp gene trees would match the species tree in almost every case. So, as you can see, as I have explained, evolutionists use the proportion of gene trees that do not match the species tree, and therefore use to estimate the population sizes of ancestral population. See, they assume common ancestry. See? That's just one. I can go in detail in each of the examples. Do you want me to go to the HAP map or another one? Oh, those so easy to prove. So shall I continue or we're in a time constraints, right?
Well, do you feel like we should give them one more tease then on the HAP map?
Okay, so the HAP map. This is very complicated. Actually, like I said previously, the HAP map is the only real unbiased data they have on estimating population sizes. But like I said, there's also little bias over there. Okay, there's also little bias over there. Let me explain the HAP map in a nutshell. The HAP map is actually a study of SNPs or single nucleotide polymorphism. It is the largest study of genetic differences among many people groups around the world. Okay, they compare genetic differences, which person has an A here, which person has a T or a C or a G over here. Okay, in the HAP map, they actually found out that there are many stages of mutations, and that those stages of mutations, based on current observations, can only happen for millions of years. All right, and if I'm an evolutionist, I would agree to that. Okay, I would agree. Those mutations, because there are really stages of mutations. Okay, so those stages could take millions of years. So I cannot really explain too much. I have not much time to explain. The HAP map also revealed that there is an almost 50-50 split between the DNA letters among people groups worldwide. Okay, for example, never mind, it'll be too long. it suggests a highly mutated genome. Okay, now I am unbiased. Okay, when I look at this neutrally, it seems to lean towards evolution. Okay, it seems to lean towards evolution. Okay, creationists cannot completely debunk this, but we have an alternative explanation. And these alternative explanations, we have 4 explanations against this. Okay, one of them I personally created myself, conceived myself, but I won't use that. So like I said, there's a 50-50 split between the DNA letters among the people groups worldwide. Okay, and this suggests a highly mutated genome which looks like evolution. Okay, okay, I have not much time to explain this, so I'll just think of one. Let's see. Okay, let's use this evidence. Remember, 50-50 split between the DNA letters among people groups worldwide. Okay. All right. I lost it. Okay. According to our creationist model, the pre-existing DNA differences or created heterozygosity that God put on the alleles of Adam during his creation are also 50-50 split between the letters among each pair of the allele. For example, this is the allele, right? So there's an A here, there's a B, there's a C here, there's a T here, there's a A, there's a C, and there's a D. Completely no match. All the way, the entire allele. Completely different from each other. Every line of it. Completely different. So as you can see, it's a 50-50 split, correct? And like I said, the HapMap data showed a 50-50 split between the DNA letters among the people groups worldwide. Okay, now, if Adam started with a 50-50 split of his alleles, okay, completely different, one pair, one is completely different from the other, and with the combination of genetic drift, which I cannot explain because of lack of time here, with the combination of genetic drift, the 50-50 split in the HapMap is also predicted by creationists. Because with created heterozygosity, a completely different allele, completely different, these two, 50-50, starting with 50-50, and then with genetic drift, the result will also be 50-50 today. So that's it. Sorry, it's really technical. I don't know how to explain it in a much easier way.
No, that's fine, brother. That's good. One last thing I noticed, I just felt compelled to say, though, because after reading through it thoroughly, Ration alMind doesn't seem to, just based on one thing he said, but obviously we don't want to give away too much here in the full rebuttal, but it doesn't seem like he, I don't know if you noticed the same thing, but it doesn't seem like he knows our genetic diversity is few today, and yet it's proven and uncontested by not only evolutionists and us as well, because that smaller genetic diversity means logically that we came from a small population. Large genetic diversity equals we came from a large population. And the fact that we have very little genetic diversity today, only 0.5% DNA differences among all humans.
0.5.
0.5% DNA differences among all humans. That logically follows that we came from a small population, right? Adam and Eve are the 3 daughters in law of Noah. So it seemed like he didn't understand that. You know, did you gather that too?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he's losing his mind or he is drunk or something. He actually said, why should we expect a lot of genetic differences from 10,000 people? Of course, we should expect a lot more genetic differences if we came from 10,000 or 100,000 people, right? Because there's not plus in their model it's about 100,000 years like that, or 10,000 to 100,000 years. So a lot of time for mutations to create genetic differences. Yet we only discovered few genetic differences among humans today. Does he not know? I mean, really, it's really funny. I mean, Dr. Francis Collins, the leading DNA expert of the world, even said that I forgot the exact quote. He said this remarkably low human genetic diversity. Okay, he said this remarkably low human genetic diversity is what makes us unique from all other species on Earth. And as I recall, what's his name again? Rational. I think he's irrational, not rational. Irrational, whatever. He said that what did he say again? Standing, I forgot.
About the few genetic. Let me see if I can get it up here. About the genetic.
I think, what he said was, if we really descended from the. Sorry, I forgot what he said.
Well, I'm looking through the YouTube. Let me see exactly what he said.
I remember what he said. He said something like, he said that I said that if we really descended from a population of many people, or let's say 10,000 to 100,000, then he said that I said that. Then our genetic diversity should be greater than it is today. That's what he said that I said. Okay, and he said that I said it I said it completely out of the blue, without calculations or evidence of any kind to support to support what I said. Okay, but we're repeating ourselves now. Okay, evolution through millions of years should produce a lot of genetic differences today. Okay, and then you discovered the population bottleneck. Okay, but still your population bottleneck, according to your biased population genetics, which I just proved a while ago, still you descended from 10,000 to 100,000. So 10,000 to 100,000 should lower our current genetic. The 10,000 to 100,000 people should produce a lot of genetic diversity today. Because of your long ages, more time for mutations, more time for genetic differences to arise. This is logical, man. You don't know about this? Irrational? Huh? And I even provided the quote from Dr. Francis Collins, the world's leading DNA expert. He said that our genetic diversity is incredibly low. But if we came from a huge population, we should have larger genetic differences today. Isn't this obvious? Come on. Really?
Maybe you should. Maybe you guys should have him on for a hangout sometime.
Are you talking about Ration alMind?
Yeah,
Irrational mind.
Yeah, have you had one there before?
I've recommended to Rational and Nesslig to do something like that, but they don't seem to want to. They just want to do, like, for example, Nesslig keeps complaining about joining his forum, but from the arguments that I've seen, if the best he's going to get is from an Amazon.com review or just some blog, and he doesn't understand really the model. He doesn't understand that one or two beneficial mutations are not going to counterbalance the influx of deleterious mutations. He has no idea about the element haplogroups. Look to Rationale for that. Rationale failed miserably. So I guess I can understand why they don't want to come on. But
yeah,
do you guys, is that it that we want to give away there, Jeremy, and kind of just leave the rebuttal to people that are interested, people that, I think the video speaks for itself that we did yesterday. But if there are any fellow brothers or sisters in Christ, fellow young Earth creationists that feel like something that Rationale said confuses them, then just tell them to email us, and then we'll answer their questions accordingly and send them a copy of the rebuttal. Does that sound fair, Jeremy, or was there anything else you wanted to add to it?
Well, I could go on forever trying to rebut him. Like, I already gave you my rebuttal, right?
Yeah, and even
Showing
another
to
thing,
them.
even another thing too, when he challenged us on the Preston protein and saying that, you know, it's clear that you know, we haven't looked into it in any detail or even read the original paper on it. And, you know, we've got answers to all that. I don't know if we want to go into it briefly at all or just leave it up to, was that another misrepresentation there, Jeremy?
Actually, he improved our case on the Preston.
Yes. Yeah.
He made it better for us.
How come briefly?
Well, he suggested the convergence is at the amino acid level, even deeper, even better. And amino acids are like the nucleotides too, and nucleotides are like the amino acids too, in a way. Not, of course, they're not exactly the same.
Matt, are you there, brother?
Yeah.
Did you have any kind of input here? There's so much we could say, but like I said, they failed. We've got the rebuttal. I think we've said enough here to kind of expose their misrepresentations. Maybe as time goes on, we'll go more and more into videos. Nesslig really had nothing to offer in regards to genetic entropy, so that's done. But did you have anything to add, brother? How do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, they're ranting and raving and about the phylogeny debunk thing as well, but they don't understand. You know, their rescuing device for that seems to be every time that they go back to a clade and they go, well, you know, look, dogs and cats and sharks are all carnivores, aren't they? Like that somehow helps their source. It's like, yeah,
Right.
so what? You know what I mean? What? Okay. And that means what? You know, are they related because of it? I mean, birds lay eggs. Are they related to fish? You know, fish lay eggs. So what? You know what I mean? I don't. They're trying to connect the dots when there isn't dots to connect. They have to build the tree somehow. So it's all presumption based off this common ancestry. So.
Yeah, and I did explain the common ancestry in detail on how they do it in population genetics. So there's no dispute that they are really biased. And the hap map too. That hap map, by the way, they just ignored creationist explanation. Actually, Dr. Robert Carter of Creation Ministries International sent our own data with the help of Mendel's accountant. It is a population genetics software to measure evolutionary population sizes, of course, created by creationists. But the code is there. Evolutionists can check how it was made so that they cannot accuse of bias. So Dr. Robert Carter sent the data of the creationist version of the hap map to Dr. Francis Collins, but he never got a reply. So I don't know if Dr. Francis Collins was too busy or he's also biased. So I'm not really sure. But Dr. Robert Carter, I know he didn't only send it to Francis Collins. He also sent it to who's the other popular theistic evolutionist? Oh, never mind. He sent it to theistic evolutionists. I don't think he sent it to atheist evolutionists because he and I and we know that atheist evolutionists cannot be trusted. We can only trust theistic evolutionists or Christian evolutionists.
Exactly. I mean, look, they have to use common ancestry every single time in their calculations. They don't care if they're looking through a microscope and the evidence is right before them, because they go, well, that can't be right because there is a common ancestor. So they already their
Yes,
premise,
perfect point.
Yeah, they just started their premise with the wrong assumption. So
right.
They don't really care about what they're seeing.
It's just like phylogenetic systematics. The entire thing is based on a primary false assumption that universal common ancestry is true. So now all evidence becomes evidence for universal common ancestry. Actually, we'll be doing a detailed video hopefully by the end of this week, where, because your video, Matt, which already has 1.3 thousand views, tons of comments, Aaron Ra's little posse certainly attacking that video, but that video was meant to demonstrate how fallacious his challenge is, quote unquote. But the next video that we do is going to be to just destroy phylogenetic systematics. We'll have Jeremy here. We'll go over some specific genetic markers, go over their primary false assumptions. So that's going to be fun.
Oh yeah, we'll pick it apart because, like I said, that video was just to show that it's not an actual challenge at all, and it can break its own rules. It doesn't have rules to follow. It's contradictory, and then if we want to actually take the challenge, it doesn't have rules to actually follow because they can break their own rules. So it fails on every challenge that there is, and it's not even geared towards creationists. He's gearing it towards us because we're his enemy. He's an evolutionist atheist. He's an anti-theist. So that's his whole goal in life. And that's why he's made it his challenge to make it the challenge geared towards us when it's an evolutionary assumption. So it's up to his own scientists to debunk it. And he would get mad at them if they were to debunk it as well, because as I said, he can violate the rules. And the second his own evolutionists do the same thing, he would cry bloody havoc if that were to happen.
It's a false dichotomy is what he's created. It's a fallacious challenge. You've done a great job showing why it is. And now we'll actually, the whole assumption of common ancestry being a starting assumption about all data, not actually a conclusion from it. I think that all goes back to even Ration alMind here and his rebuttal, because he can't see past his primary assumption. And that's why he misrepresents, and that's why he misunderstands. So I think it all goes in line back to that false assumption.
Yeah, definitely. They have nothing without their common ancestry somewhere in their assumption or with their calculations. They remove it, they have nothing. But so they're basing it on faith. So they get mad at us when people they go, "Oh, Christians, all you have is faith on your thing." It's like, that's all you guys have. What the fuck are you talking about? Get out of here.
Well, what they do is they introduce a bias every time into the interpretation of the results. Me and Jeremy were talking the other day. We're like, is he looking at the tree? Or how did you put it, Jeremy? Like, is he looking at the LMN tree, but at the same time thinking about his ape to human ancestry? Do you remember that?
Yes. What again? Sorry.
Well, because everything he was saying was based on misrepresentations and
not all, most, not all.
Yeah, yes. But as he's looking at the tree and the rooting of it, you were saying, I wonder if he's looking at that, but deep down inside, he's looking at it with his assumption, right? The ape human ancestry, and that's why he's not getting it. Something like that. I can't remember exactly how you said it. But.
I don't think he entirely looks at that. Of course, at the back of his mind, he has that assumption, but I don't completely think he is looking at that seriously. It's just in his what do you call that? Is still subconscious the correct English word? At the back of his mind, like that.
Yeah, he's subconsciously thinking about it. Actually, you made a good point at the beginning of this about, just kind of came to mind right now with John Sanford and how he it's kind of like an insider secret, which is why no population geneticist actually has written any serious peer-reviewed papers against his work. What was the point you made?
Because he has established so much in the genetics community, scientific community, that some evolutionists were able to or willing to share some secrets to him, some of the trade secrets of the evolutionary community. but of course, the other creation scientists who has not achieved as much as Dr. John Sanford were not in to the secret, the trade secret. So, and that's what Dr. Sanford did before he wrote his book, Those Trade Secrets of the Evolutionary Community, because he is almost popular, and he invented something, patented something, and did a lot of stuff for the genetics community that some evolutionists are willing to share some of their trade secrets to him. Those trade secrets then he put in his book. And there are only two really very well established, as in with many awards, many with some patents like that in young Earth creationists. Dr. Russell Humphreys and Dr. John Sanford. Only two of them has the most achievements in secular in secular in the secular world, in the scientific community that are young Earth creationists. It's
And I just want
two of them.
exactly, great points. I just want to put one thing to bed, because once again, CRISPR, he also got his arguments from this Amazon.com and just all weak rebuttals, right? That's why I destroy him every time. Now, what he says is exactly what this guy on the Amazon.com says. I just want to see where he said it. Oh, right here. So this is John Sanford said. He said this to his objector. He says, "Yeah, you are correct that almost none of my work is being cited by my peers." Word for word argument from CRISPR. He says, "Like yourself, most of my peers are very committed ideologically and simply do not wish to open the door to dialogue regarding the very real problems associated neo-Darwinian theory." So regarding their refusal to cite my work in publications, does that reflect poorly on me or on them? As you know, in science, it is considered highly unethical to deliberately suppress relevant peer-reviewed literature. Do you see why we could never be convinced by this extreme bias, these arguments, this suppression of very real problems? It goes right back to what you said. He's been in there, he was respected, he knows the real problems, and yet they suppress it.
Well, they just won't listen to any competing theories. I think that's just the overarching problem. Like the neo-Darwinists, they just suppress any alternative evolutionary theories. I mean, some of these scientists aren't even creationists. A lot of them are secular. I mean, it's the same thing. I mean,
right, right. But regardless, I mean, there's really no, because most people in the field, anyways, know that the human genome is clearly degenerating. Obviously they've got their rescue devices, but the ones who have examined it the most closely, like Dr. John Sanford, even with intense selection, it's still a huge problem, and it really does falsify the theory. But I'm not surprised that they have to hold to it and resort to Amazon.com arguments or blogs. So it is what it is, but it falsifies their theory at the end of the day. There's a ton of evidence. I recommend everybody check out the papers that I've provided here. It's actually been fun because Jeremy and I both had a good laugh at that, apparent rebuttal. But like I said, anybody who's looking for any other answers to anything he said, just email me. We'll answer the questions, or we'll just provide you the rebuttal. I'll leave it to you guys if you guys have any other things to say. As a last announcement, probably Thursday, we're going to do that second video, phylogenetics, systematics, more so the science of it debunked. But I'll leave it to you guys if you have any final words, and we'll call it a night.
I don't really have anything specific to say. Just keep up the good work. I mean, we've been getting a lot of attention lately, so I think that's a good thing. So
I think that's a good thing. You're right.
Yeah.
Standing for truth, you did quote somebody a while ago, correct? Sorry, it was Dr. John Sanford, right?
Well, because CRISPR was messaging me privately saying, how come they're not citing John Sanford? And it's a direct quote or direct argument from this Amazon.com, and Dr. Sanford just shuts him down. And I even messaged Chris, but I said, do I really got to tell you why? Like, they just reek of bias. You know what I mean?
Yes. Thank you.
Well, that's why they're so mad. And you can read the chat in the new video that I made. That's why they're attacking creationism rather than the actual video. It's like, what in the world's going on here? You know, I post evidence, I post screenshots, I post their biased assumptions, and these ass clowns accuse us like we weren't atheist evolutionists ourselves. What? What the hell?
Let's just remember what Professor Paul Davies said. Okay, this is a statement of bias from them. Okay, Professor Paul Davies is a popular guy. He said that science takes its starting point that life wasn't made by a god or supernatural being. It happened unaided and spontaneously as a natural process. Okay, so before any scientific investigation, they already discounted God, not even giving a benefit of a doubt. Okay. Oh, by the way, for the atheists who always accuse creationists of quote mining whenever we quote evolutionists like Professor Paul Davies, is this a quote mine? What he said, is it true or not? Is it true that your starting point wasn't made by a god or supernatural being? It happened unaided and spontaneously. Is this a quote mine? Is this not true? Right?
Right. I love how they always accuse of quote mining. Actually, you know, Ken Hovind made a good point just yesterday about when he was doing his Iron Raw debunked video about people that always accuse of quote mining. Right? I think it was for some reason I can't think of his name right now. It's late, but he said, you know, evolution is a religion. It was true then. It's true now.
It was Michael Ruse.
Michael Ruse. So these evolutionists, oh, it's a quote mine because look what he said here, you know, like a year later or something. And Ken Ovind's like, well, of course, these evolutionists, once they start getting, you know, heckle for it and getting all this animosity from the other evolutionists, now they, you know, backtrack and say, well, that's not what I meant, and write like another paper. So now the evolutionists can accuse you of quote mining. Like, we're not that blind. You know,
I'll give another two examples. This is from Richard Dawkins' book, the very first page of his book. What title of the book? The Blind Watchmaker, page 1. He said that biology is a study of complicated things that give the appearance of having been designed for a purpose. Now, how is that quote mining? Because Richard Dawkins repeated that statement many times in his career. So how is it quote mining?
Correct.
And when he said complicated things that give the appearance of being designed for a purpose, he's referring to we already know, and you also know that he's referring to evolution as the designer, because the title of his book is The Blind Watchmaker, and that is evolution. Evolution is the blind watchmaker. So what is quote mining whenever we say this? Because the point here is Richard Dawkins is biased, as you can see. He's already seeing design right in his face, yet still he is not giving even a slight 1% chance that God may be the designer. Okay, I'm not even asking Richard Dawkins to give a 50-50 chance that maybe God was a designer and evolution is the 50% designer, 50-50. I'm not even asking for that. Just give me 10%. Give it benefit of a doubt. Give it benefit of a doubt. He can't. And all atheist evolutionists follow this, and they know it. Everything looks designed. Everything looks designed.
I think you can infer. It's okay. You can infer a creator. I mean, even if I wasn't a Christian, like I could still. I mean, the design is obvious. I mean, you can just tell. It's the evidence is there. I mean, You're right. I mean, some of these people, they're just so biased. I mean, they're not going to accept it. I mean,
there's an analogy here. I'm not sure analogy is the correct word. I think we are all familiar with diatoms. Okay, diatoms.
yeah.
All right, we see diatoms have a structure. Okay, when you look under a microscope, it looks designed. Okay,
Exactly.
and imagine those diatoms. Imagine those diatoms. We enlarge it and put it on a beach. In a beach, we enlarge the diatom and put it on a beach. When you pass by the beach, when you see the diatom, what is your first conclusion? What is your first impression? Designed or not? Yes. But when we look at it from a microscope, it is not designed. Are you kidding me? See? Bias, really. You know what? Even when I was still an atheist, I already saw this evidence of design. And it freaked me out because there could be a God. So I was a little afraid. But I stick to the bias instead. The bias is incredible, really.
Well, it's like you were talking about. It's like you were talking about yesterday. How they look at it like, oh, it's Sam the scientist always says really messy. It's really messy, but it looks that way under the microscope until you really dig deep. They're looking at a surface level.
Yes, and even the surface messy level that they are suggesting, I can refute. I mean, if it's really, yeah, it looks messy at the surface when you look at the details. What those molecular machines are doing, they look designed. But given what he said about messiness at the outside, if everything is really messy, how come life is flourishing? Huh? How come the Hox genes are able to produce a fetus and fetus to a baby? How come you can see, you can hear, you can talk, and after I say this, you might say that oh, there are design flaws in the body. Oh, that's cherry picking. Now who's cherry picking? I know your next argument after we say this. Oh, bias, really.
Oh, that's exactly.
And I remember yesterday we talked about astronomy. I think the irrational guy did the.
Actually,
Yeah.
I like that name better. Irrational mind. That's good.
Yeah, irrational guy, and then immutable destiny is now mutable destiny because we destroyed him. It's now mutable. It's no longer immutable. It's mutable.
Could you imagine?
Perfect.
Jimmy, we should set up you versus mutable destiny. Wouldn't that be good? Did you notice after you called him out on the phylogenetic systematics? A few minutes later, I said, so what do you think is the best evidence for evolution? He wouldn't want to say phylogenetic systematics because he knew you'd ask him about the details of it again. So he, you exposed me well. Yeah, okay. So Ration alMind brought up the, what was it again? It was
about the space.
Wasn't it the redshift?
The quantized redshifts, yes.
He said Jeremy says that more distant objects are more redshifted, meaning, is that the one?
I'm not sure, really. I don't have the file here.
Didn't he ignore the data from the Sloan Digital Sky Survey? And
yes, actually, I was ahead of him yesterday. When I was talking about the quantized redshifts, I was ahead of him. Because I already said yesterday in the discussion that at first, during the 90s, astronomers actually thought that the quantized redshift problem has been solved. It's only it's only a matter of a certain math. Okay, and he even repeated that in his review. So I was ahead of him. I already said that, and he said it again. Okay, it's like he never heard that I said it yesterday. You can even check the video. And then I said, the problem is back, okay, because of the Sloan Digital Sky Survey. Because the Sloan Digital Sky Survey is a direct prediction of the quantized redshifts. Okay, So since the prediction of the quantized redshifts was fulfilled, it means quantized redshifts are true. Isn't it obvious, right, guys? So in his rebuttal to my quantized redshifts, sorry, our quantized redshifts, he didn't mention, he didn't address. I don't even think he looked at the Slow and Digital Sky survey on YouTube, which I suggested everybody look. Okay, how it supports quantized redshifts. So he avoided the fulfilled prediction of the quantized redshifts and made a big deal out of the speculation that the quantized redshifts has been debunked in the 90s. But I already said it in the video. They thought it was debunked until the Slow and Digital Sky survey as a direct prediction of the quantized redshifts. So why did he mention about the Slow and Digital Sky survey?
So he just repeated what you said then.
Yes, he just repeated what I said. I anticipate. I know exact. In most cases, I know the evolutionary rebuttal. In most cases,
You anticipate them for the most part.
Yeah, I already said it before he even said it. And then he left out the he did mention the Slow and Digital Sky survey, and his reply was incredibly short actually. After he mentioned the Slow and Digital Sky survey, he didn't refute it. He just went to the quantized redshifts, and what he said about the quantized redshift is what I said in the discussion yesterday. He just repeated what I said. You see?
Well, then
Quantized redshifts direct prediction was the Slow and Digital Sky survey. Fulfilled prediction means the quantized redshifts is here to stay. Okay.
It should make any creationists feel confident in the strength of our model when apparently the evolutionary heavyweights don't have much to offer. So
actually, Dr. Russell Humphreys has a message to all young Earth creationists. He actually not the exact words, but he said that he wants all of us to be able to trust the Bible, because there is a solution to everything, even the toughest distant starlight, which he created the gravitational time dilation to solve. So that's his message to all of us.
Right.
We should be able to trust.
And we can, and you know what? The goal of this hangout was to just provide enough of a tease to reveal and expose the misrepresentations. I'm not saying all of it was, but also the errors. You know, a few errors plus misrepresentations. So young Earth creationists should feel more than confident. But if there's anything that they may come across in what he said or Nesslig, like I said, email us. We'll either provide you the portion of the rebuttal that's dealing specifically with that. But it really just comes down to the title of this video, why they failed. So guys, the audience, listen, Thursday, I think we're going to do the second part of the phylogenetic video. First part was revealing how fallacious the challenge is, and Thursday we'll debunk in detail the science of it. So thanks Landon, thanks Jeremy, and thanks Matt. Everyone have a good night.
Okay.
Okay, bye.